Hello. Today is June 11th, 2013, and I must admit, it's been a long time since my last Child First video talk. For those who don't know me, I'm Ron Stern, President of CEASD. I'd like to give you a quick summary of what has happened in the past 2 or 3 months. First of all, CEASD held its annual conference in Tucson, Arizona. It was an incredible success. The programming was wonderful, and I have to give a tip of the hat, thanks and recognition to James Tucker, Superintendent of the Maryland School for the Deaf, for taking on the planning and programming of the conference. The conference was successful in spite of the turmoil at ASDB. So kudos to the ASDB staff who upheld a strong commitment to the realization of our annual conference. Again, they did this in spite of the turmoil in their midst. I'd like to quickly touch upon several highlights of the conference. And if you're interested in more comprehensive information about the conference, please visit our CEASD website, where all presentations have been posted. Getting back to the highlights, the kickoff was given by NAD's Executive Director, Howard Rosenblum, and its President, Chris Wagner, who discussed CEASD and NAD's partnership, focusing on the education of the deaf. The start to the conference was an inspiring and rejuvenating kickoff. Later, Dr. Laura Ann Petito, from Gallaudet's VL2 lab, that's the Visual Learning, Visual Language lab, gave a stimulating and informative talk on the power of visual language and visual learning impacting brain development, and how that leads to the development of greater cognitive skills, language and literacy skills, and speech development, among other things. Throughout many conversations about Child First, Barbara Raimondo explained the new bill that CEASD has been trying to push through the United States Congress, which is called the Alice Cogswell Bill. Now, I've mentioned the bill before, so I'll try not to repeat anything that I've already stated. But with respect to the bill, Barbara once again impressed upon all members the call for our help in sharing the Cogswell Bill with our various United States representatives, as well as senators who live in our states. And this presents a unique opportunity for us to, one, better our relationships with those members of Congress, relationships that perhaps were non-existent before, and two, to raise and propagate awareness about the unique educational needs for our deaf children, as well as the unique role of schools for the deaf and unique placement needs of deaf children. The Cogswell Bill, once again, is a bill that we realize the chances of passing to become law are tough. But we will still give this our best shot. This is also a messaging bill and part of a process that will allow us to develop new relationships in Washington, D.C., with the Department of Ed and with Congress. By the end of the conference, many of the participants had already become enthusiastic and motivated about next year's conference, to be held in Indiana and hosted by the Indiana School for the Deaf. So those are my highlights of the CEASD conference, which took place the last week of April. Now, during the last week of May, myself, Joe Finnegan, and Barbara Raimondo sat down and had a meeting with Bill East, who is NASD's executive director. NASD, N-A-S-D-S-E, stands for the National Association of State Directors of Special Education. It's a national organization of all uppermost special education directors representing every state in the United States. His office is in Alexandria, Virginia, and we had what I think was an excellent and quite productive meeting. 3 things were discussed. First of all, which I've mentioned before, CEASD's board, as well as CEASD's board, had a joint meeting back when CEASD convened in Sacramento, California, last October. So we talked about the possibility of having both boards come together again at CEASD's annual conference this coming October in Atlanta. This is something Bill East will bring to his board for discussion. Secondly, we talked about CEASD possibly giving us a time slot in their conference program so that Jane Mulholland from the Washington School for the Deaf can give a presentation much like the one she gave at our CEASD conference in Tucson. In Washington State, they've developed an outstanding model for collaboration between their state school for the deaf, their state Department of Education, and their state legislature. That collaborative relationship serves all, each and every deaf or hard of hearing child from birth all the way through the age of high school. There are already many state models, but what has happened in Washington is such a new and exciting model that after our conference in Tucson, superintendents and others who were fortunate enough to have seen her presentation were overwhelmingly impressed, and we hope she will have the chance to have the same impact at CEASD's conference in October. Thirdly, we discussed the Cogswell bill with Bill East. First of all, we wanted to ask for a better understanding of the type of support and agreement for our initiative that we could expect from special education directors from around the United States, as well as from the CEASD board. Also, if they feel they cannot support certain parts of the bill, we want to know them. This information will help us decide if there are modifications we should make to the bill before we initiate further dialogue with members of Congress. The next time we have a Child First Executive Committee meeting in September or thereabouts, we will have more information about an exciting new project. Through collaboration between NAD and CEASD, we will have a Child First video. It will be a succinct yet extremely powerful 2 to 5 minute video that will serve as a trigger, a shot of inspiration for any parent or perhaps legislators and others who upon seeing it will surely want more information about the education of the deaf, which will lead to more sources of information. This effort has just recently begun, and by September we should have more information for you. We hope to have the video ready by the end of this year. So stay tuned. We're pleased that the level of focus and commitment to deaf education continues to rise. We've noticed that state associations, state-level conferences, and national organizations have been putting Child First on their agendas. And many of us have gone to those conferences to speak, to explain and dialogue with those audiences about Child First. We must continue to build upon and expand the number of individuals and organizations who are ready to jump onto our bandwagon to support Child First. Be sure to check out CEASD's new website. If you haven't yet done so, we do have a new website, and Child First is now a much more accessible component of it. From here on out, we will continue to add new information to the website. And we also have many new video presentations, vlogs on the new website. If you have any feedback or thoughts about the new website, please feel completely free to let us know. Have a nice summer, and we'll see you again in a few months.